back over here. So today's session's all about decoding job descriptions. And I know this is something that is near and dear to the hearts of many of you because, let's face it, most of you, if not all of you, or at some point in time now or in the very near future, are going to be looking for that new job. And it's so absolutely vital that you make the most of the time that you have available to you. There's a couple of different dynamics at play anytime you go hunting for a job. The first one is that, well, quite frankly, if you don't have a job, you've got this pressure on you of needing an income. Most of us need to pay bills, all right? Just being completely honest with ourselves. And it's not just that pressure. It's also the pressure to not lose the skills and the activities that you have all up here in local storage, all right? You've been working really hard. You've been gaining experience, gaining knowledge, and the less you are exercising that, the more it's leaking out, and you're losing that because you just can't hold it in local storage that long without exercising it. The body very much is, mentally you're doing exercises every time you jump into a project, every time you work on a research, you perform research, it's always exercising those muscles. The other side of this coin is if you're currently employed. If you're currently employed, you have a even more restricted amount of time to dedicate to the job search because, let's face it, you have a job. But just because you have a job doesn't necessarily mean that you have a job that you want. You have a job that is fulfilling. You have a job that's going to help you move forward. You could have a job and it pays your bills, but the job sucks. All right? Unfortunately, you have a pressure working against you, and it's the fact that you have an income. Because you have an income, the drive to break out of that cycle, to get away from that bad job, is less. And this is how people stay stuck in these roles that they don't really like forever. It's like, well, it pays the bills. I'm not really fulfilled as a person. I'm just going to go to the bar. And a lot of bad habits form that way. A lot of addiction forms that way. We get ourselves where we're in good enough situations to where you just don't invest the time because it takes a lot of time. You don't have enough time to really sink in. So every move you make to find that next gig needs to be surgical. So, and one thing I want to mention before we keep going here, if you have a question or you have a job post you'd like me to take a look at, be sure to throw it into the live chat. We're here on YouTube. I'm watching the channel. If you have a question, I want to answer it right away. I don't want to wait. We can interrupt the presentation, all of that. So jump in, ask questions as we go. Just say hi. Just let me know that you are there. So about me, I'm Chris Courtney. For some of you may know me. Others of you are new here. I'm a designer. I run New Pragmatic. I used to work for other boot campy things. I don't do that anymore. I've been hiring designers for 20 years. All right. That's print, that's web, mobile, all across the gambit. If you're a designer and you're applying for a job, I've probably hired for the type of job that you're applying for. I've hired managers. You get the idea. The real thing I want to do in this session is, while I want to jump into job postings specifically, I want to first start by reframing what job hunting really is. And a lot of us, myself included, have all experienced this overwhelming sense of, I don't have what it takes. No one's ever going to want to hire me. And I had that coming right out of college. Right out of college, 1998, I thought there was no way in hell I was getting a job because I kept getting rejections over and over and over again, like hundreds of them, All right. So if you want to talk to somebody who's like banged their head on the table and wasn't able to find a job anywhere, I'm that person. All right. But when we really back away from the individual postings and our feelings about ourselves, and we look at it in terms of dating, you begin to see a lot of similarities between the two things. There are so many little nuances that have to align perfectly for you to be attracted to a job and the job to be attracted to you. All right? And every job that you go looking for is on one part a statement about the job that you just had. That job wasn't good enough. I deserve a better job. I'm not fulfilled in this. And it's a lot like a relationship. This boyfriend, this girlfriend, this significant other isn't good enough. I need a better one. And that's why people date and they break up and they divorce and they get married. And all of those things happen because we grow and we change over time. And that's why you're constantly looking for that next job, that more fulfilling job. Now, that means that those jobs and the descriptions that are associated with those jobs are a lot like dating profiles. And if we know anything about dating profiles, they are never accurate. Think about the last time somebody tried to set you up with somebody else. And I'm sure you've all been through this cycle before. Everybody's dated somebody of some persuasion. And you're always told how great they are. Or maybe you've read the profile and the profile is telling you how great they are. And in many ways, this is a fact that everybody's aspirational in this environment. The person that you're wanting to date is aspirational. You're aspirational. The job is aspirational. The job seeker is aspirational. And really, the job sees itself like this. They're the great warrior. They're the great savior of you. The humble job seeker. I'm here, and this is a magnificent job, and you would love to have it. When in many cases, this is the reality. All right? It is not the movie star Aquaman. It is the cosplay Aquaman. All right? The reality and what the job sees itself as are two radically different things. And I would extend that to how we see our own portfolios. We see our own portfolios as these magical things that you should the work speaks for itself. You can see how awesome I am. And yes, I'm not going to show the Batman cosplay stuff that I found because it was just ridiculous. All right, it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's embarrassing. The Aquaman thing was cute, but the Batman stuff was sad. But ultimately, what both sides of this coin need to realize is what they want. What you want isn't what you or they need. And that's just like dating. Talk to somebody when they're first date looking for that next somebody, and then talk to them like 3 months later. And the requirements for what they're looking for have drastically moved. They're not in the same ballpark anymore. Are they alive? That's where this goes. And the other thing that I want to encourage you to hold on to this little nugget, this thought, this one thing. If you leave here with nothing else, hold on to this one thing. 0.1%. That's less than 1%. That's the chance that the job posting that you see is going to identically align with this magical person that they say they're looking for, and that person's actually considering taking that job. So many things have to line up for them to get everything they want in that crazy aspirational job posting. So many things. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's like seeing a unicorn, finding a leprechaun, knowing the ending of Game of Thrones. It's magical, okay? And here's something else I want to tell you. You will hear a lot of people, I found the perfect hire. I found the perfect someone. And they are lying to themselves. This is a great myth about hiring. We found the perfect person. No, you discovered along the way what you were really looking for. And when you when you finally saw it, then you found the perfect person. But it was not the person you described. It was not the person you said you were looking for. You found the perfect hire, yes, because what you determined was what you were looking for was crazy. And these are the things that I need you to hold on to when you are in your job search. Because when you are in your job search, it is very easy to beat the hell out of yourself. When you are in the job search, it is very easy from the hiring perspective to say, well, there's just nobody qualified. And in fact, that's just not true. So I want to talk specifically about job postings, because that's what the hell this whole talk is supposed to be about, job postings. But without the reframing of what job hiring really is, I think talking about the job postings is hard to kind of grok, to be completely honest with you. Because for you to understand that and I'm going to expand this really quickly. Yes, I would like to enter full screen. Thank you. Whoops. Anyway, without the ability to grasp why job titles are so hard to compare, it's because the aspirational thing before. But there's other issues here. You just go, you go to your favorite job site. And by the way, there's a job board on the new Pragmatic Slack channel where I'm pulling like 7 of these job sites in the one spot. If you're not in here, let me show it to you real quick, because I think it's actually really helpful. Go into the Design Jobs channel, and there are 8 new job posts this morning that have come in. All right, so if you're not using that, be sure to hit that every day, because there's new stuff in there all the time. The trouble here, and by the way, this talk is based entirely on actual job postings that I went through and researched and compared. But I want to focus on this job title because it's a really familiar job title, UX UI designer. If you've been looking around, I guarantee you that you've come across this job title. I don't want to necessarily focus on what that job entails, because what it entails depends on several considerations. All right, and I really want every move that you make to be maximizing your time, because there are jobs that you could apply for that are just a waste of your time. All right, and there are some considerations. Even if you're just looking at your just average quote air quotes average UX UI design job, let's unpack some of the considerations that are underneath that. One, and this is the big one, this is the main one. What are the actual tasks that are listed? I had 2 job postings that came in back to back. UX UI designer. They were for different companies, obviously, although that's not always the case. But they were for different companies in this situation. One job posting for UX UI designer listed out, "Oh, you're going to make interfaces for cars." Okay, so that was there's There's not a lot of people. I can't name anybody. Actually, I know one person who's designed interfaces for cars. I've been designing for 20 years. I know one person in my ecosystem that's designed for like a Tesla or something. And then the other job posting was like, you're going to handle the online persona for our company, and you're going to handle the design system. That's a radically different job. It's for websites and mobile apps, and it's branding and marketing, and it's not dashboard design. So the tasks that are listed that are underneath both those jobs, radically different. One you may be really well suited for. The other you may not be well suited for. So you can't just go through and say, okay, I'm just going to apply to everything that's UX UI design today. I'm just going to apply for everything there. The next thing I want you to consider is, what's the location of the job? And this is something I didn't get a chance to really talk about this in the boot camp land when I was working for those other companies. I did not really get it because I got this pushback that there were these job guarantees, okay? And the pushback here is they want you to work in a particular space, okay? They want you to go to San Francisco or New York or whatever. My belief is this: there's good jobs available everywhere, but you need to be honest with yourself about where you're willing to go. All right? And what matters to you will set itself out right here. Does it matter more to live in Washington, D.C., or does it matter more to have a tech job working in design? Because I know of a firm hiring in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now that has 0 applicants that's been looking for 6 months. Know them right now. You can be the first person to apply. And the likelihood that you're going to land that job significantly higher than landing a job in New York. Because there's tons of designers in New York. I mentioned Tulsa because that's where I moved. That was my first job. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I was not qualified for the job. I was not qualified. It's weird to say. It's hard to say. It's hard to say that because I actually was qualified, and then a year later I was overqualified for the same job. You see the dynamic here. My point is this: if you want a job, they are out there. You have to be willing to move to them. All right? Now, not everybody has that option. Some of you are in relationships. Some of you have parents that you need to take care of or kids that you need to take care of. Like, there are all sorts of things that hold you in a spot. I just want you to understand that that's more of a personal anchor than a professional anchor, okay? And that's really something that you need to be honest with yourself about. All right, it isn't the job doesn't want you. It's that you don't want that job for a particular set of reasons, and that's okay. That's okay. But we need to be honest with ourselves and because so often that turns into the world doesn't want me. I can't get a job. And that's not the reality. The reality is I can get a job, but my personal circumstances won't allow me to go chase down that job that's way over there or way over there. A lot of people will ask, well, how the hell did you end up in Chicago? Well, I moved to Tulsa, then I moved to Indianapolis, and then I moved to Chicago. It took me 3 years to get to Chicago, and I never got that job in Little Rock because after I worked in Tulsa, I tried to go back to Little Rock, and they said, oh, you're overqualified now. I can't even get a job in my hometown. Now, I could obviously move back now and do what I'm doing now, talking to you, but that's a different dynamic. But the location of the job does matter. And if you were saying, hey, you know what, listen, I'm tired of where I'm at, I want to reboot and go somewhere else, I would really encourage you to apply for some of these jobs that are in these spots that aren't tech hubs. The opportunity for you to snatch those up, very high. The other thing I want to point out is the company attached to the job posting is going to radically change your chances of getting in there or not. One of the companies, the car dashboard company, was a company I'd never heard of in my life. That doesn't mean they're a bad company. In fact, what I would challenge you to do is talk to 10 of your friends and ask yourself, if you didn't know that friend, would you know where they worked at just right off the top of your head? Most of us wouldn't. Most of us would not. The companies that our friends rattle off, we've never heard of them. And I want you to hold that in the back of your head when you're thinking about, what places am I going to apply for? Because there's a lot of companies out there that have jobs that you've never heard of that you should be considering, but we're always drawn to the name brand. When I know this firsthand. I used to work at a name brand. When I worked at the Chicago Tribune, and I would back this up and say my mom still explains to people that I used to work at the Chicago Tribune, which means that even owning my own company has not trumped the fact that I used to work at the Chicago Tribune. Name brands matter, all right? And name brands matter to only your ego or the ego of your friends. They matter nothing to your bank account. And the opportunity really is in those non-name brands. So while I worked at while I always had to explain what the boot camp company I worked for did, the bank account was better than it was when I worked at the name brand. And I need you to think about that when you're looking at these companies. Do not fall into the trap of saying, oh, I want to work at Fifth Third Bank, or I want to work at the LA Times, or I want to work at Coach or BMW. Those are great, but it's going to be a harder job to actually get. This between you and me. So a lesser known company in a non-tech hub, that's just a less competitive pool, all right, right away. An unknown company in Tulsa, Oklahoma, probably getting very few applicants. A better known company in a tech hub, it's just going to be really hard to break through. So when you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to send out 5 really good job applications today. Are you going to waste time applying to a fashion brand like Coach in New York City? Or are you going to apply to a lesser known company in a lesser known town because you're more likely to break through there? These are the things that I really need you to consider. And let's break this down a little further. Let's say that you're in Denver. Denver's a tech hub. And you're already there. Well, that's great. You're already in a tech hub. Don't just aim at the names you know. Yes, I've got students that work at like DirecTV and Crocs and companies that are, you know them because they're consumer brands. But there's a lot of companies out there that you've never heard of. I would focus my attention there. But it all comes down to, what are the tasks that are associated with that job? Pay less attention to the title and more attention to the tasks, and then break down where is it at and who's it associated with. This is the big one. Oh, hey, I've got Mylene. Hi, I know you're searching. Shanley, hello. And Creative Crackpot. Every time I see that, I know who that is, but I'm just gonna go with Creative Crackpot. So good seeing everybody here this morning. The next piece is the one that I get the most questions about. And it's the one that you probably have the most questions about. And it's experience. And if you're looking at job postings, all you see, all the livelong day, is senior, manager, lead, right? It's all senior level. And I went through the last 40 job posts that are over on the new Pragmatic site, because I just want to take a sampling. Let's just take a sampling. And by and large, you're right. 14 of those out of the 40 that I reviewed. This is the last 40 through, okay? I didn't go back historically and looked at hundreds. I just looked at the last 40. 14 of them were senior level. And it jumps out at you, especially when you've got it in your head that everything is senior level. Every time you see senior, it like jumps out at you. It's like, another one. It's kind of like when you get in your head you want to buy a certain type of car, then suddenly you start seeing that car everywhere. It's the same mentality. And also, when you're looking for the thing that you want, which in your case may be a junior level, suddenly you see none of them, and you recognize just how few of them you see. And honestly, there are 40 job posts. 1 in 40 was a junior position. 14 in 40 was a senior position. That seems like the scales are tilted way out of control, right? But I want you to reframe that. Let's reframe this concept. 25 of them had no level listed. They could be senior. They could be junior. But they said, I want a designer. I need a designer who does these specific things. Which means that over half of the jobs out there are something you could consider, and you need to dive in deeper. I do want to point out that I think senior roles are legitimately senior in most cases. If you dive into the role, if it's a senior and it doesn't say something like manage projects, manage people, mentor, lead, if those words aren't popping up, then it's not really a senior role. Senior role is about management. It's about using your expertise to guide a team of others. And I need you to recognize that unless you have management experience leading designers, you should not waste your time applying for a senior role. They're looking for somebody who's going to basically be a force multiplier. All right, I'm going to be able to take my experience, put it on 10 people, and they're going to move forward. Okay? What that means is that all other roles are completely open. More than half the 40 that I mentioned are something you should consider applying for. But this does allow you to narrow your focus. Okay, that says it's a senior role. I'm not going to apply for it. And what I will say is this. I said senior role. I didn't say 5 years of experience. I want to take that concept and I want to chuck it as far away from our conversation as possible, because it doesn't matter. Your experience, you could have 5 years of sucking in your experience. I know designers who have been doing this for a decade that aren't very good, that most of my students should be able to come out and mop the floor with right away because they've got modern skill sets and they're ready to go. That the years of experience matters zilch. So let's take and scrub that and put that off to the side. Not concerned with years of experience. I'm worried about skills. Can you do the job? And then, is the job appropriate? Are you supposed to be leading others? Well, in those cases, you typically do need to have some sort of track record leading others. But if that's not the case, then jump on in, provided that you have the skills they're looking for. And we'll talk about the skills they're looking for in just a minute. There's another aspect of this that I think is crucial, really, to your growth. So this discussion is not all about what do they need. It's real. I really want to focus for a minute on what you need. And what you need is to have an opportunity to grow in the direction that you would like to grow in. And I've seen a lot of people, particularly in prepping for this session, I'll be honest with you, I read a lot of blog posts that people had written from like recruiter sites and crap like that. And they always thought, well, if there's not a team, if there is a team, there's always a caveat of why something is bad. All right. So it's bad. It's a bad job if it's this. It's a bad job if it's that. I want to wipe the slate clean on that too, because I don't necessarily think that having a team or not having a team is bad. It depends on where you're at. And the presence of people to grow around matters a lot, particularly if you are new. If you're getting started in this, and it's like you're going to be the lone designer on this new startup, that's probably a bad spot for somebody just getting into the field. If there is a team there and you're supposed to be working and collaborating with, You need to be thinking in terms of, okay, this is an opportunity. This is a place where I can succeed because there's going to be people to grow from, and it helps me build forward. If you see a job posting that there's not a team and you're just getting started, that's a dead end. There's a possibility to derail your career and end up in a ditch because there was no one to learn from, and you took this gig, and now you're in a ditch because there was nothing produced out of it. If you are looking for a leadership position, the presence of a team really matters because, let's be honest, it's really hard to be a leader if there is no team to lead. All right? And if you're being hired as a UX lead or a senior designer, but there's no, regular designer, then that's a problem. Okay? That's not really an opportunity for you to grow. Now, if they said, we want to bring you in as a lead designer and we're hiring a team, that's different. But it'll say that in the job description. So if there is a team and you're young, awesome. That's a good environment for you. If there is a team and you're wanting to lead and the job is like lead designer or creative director or something like that, that's great. That's a good job for you if you have the experience necessary to apply for that job. But what if there isn't a team? Is that a bad job? Is that a job you shouldn't consider? Well, I happen to work at a company that is a company of one right now. You're watching it. And it's a great opportunity for me. I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't necessarily need a team of people around me. A lot of people need teams just to get up out of bed to be held accountable. I don't necessarily need a team, so this is great for me. These situations are not necessarily for leadership. These are for making. I want as few roadblocks in my way so I can create. When you see a startup, and there are lots of opportunities for designers, when you see a startup looking for somebody to come in and you're going to set our design tone, that's great. I want you to look at that as your second or third job. I want you to go in and get some experience. I don't want you to join a startup right out of the box as their first designer. That's a terrible opportunity for somebody getting started. It's a great opportunity for somebody who knows the field and is looking to make. Those are also really gut-wrenching opportunities because revenue is like this, pay is just all over the place. These are situations that can chase a lot of people out, not because it was a bad opportunity, but because something terrible happened, like with the accounting. I was working and then I didn't get paid for 2 months. All right? I don't want you in those situations. If you go into one of these situations, I need you in a really financially stable position. I need you able to deal with the churn of a startup, okay? So just keep those things in mind when you see lack of a team. Lack of a team means probably a startup. There are other situations where it's not a startup, or at least it doesn't look like a startup. There's a lack of a team, but it's inside of a giant organization. A lot of organizations like to start these skunk work teams, and I'm using the happy air quotes, skunk work teams. And skunk work teams are, you're going to work on a project that our regular team can't work on because we can't find time to dedicate resources to it. So we're creating this little skunk works team. Understand that those situations are highly volatile because you'll work on that team. It'll be like a 6-month contract and then you're gone. All right. Unless what you worked on catches fire. I need you aware of these things as you're considering applying for them. Is that what you're looking for? Are you looking for like a 6-month bridge to the next thing? Or are you looking for permanent employment that you're going to have for years potentially? That makes a difference when you're thinking about putting together your resume and your portfolio and spending all this time applying for these jobs. Remember, particularly if you're like in the boot camp world, they're asking you to apply to like 20 jobs a week or whatever. These takes time. It takes time to put things together and write that custom cover letter, which I'll do if anybody's interested on cover letter writing and resumes, I'm willing to do a session on that too. So just ping me in the chat, and we'll look at that for a future session. But with specific regard to teams, it all matters like where you're at in your growth cycle. Young designer, older designer, really experienced designer. The team that you are joining needs to align with what you need to do next as you're moving forward. So, hi Lisa, thanks for that. Yeah, we'll queue that one up because I'm really hot on resumes and cover letters. We've talked about case studies. You can go back and watch that video as well. The real key here is understanding that the team structure that you see in that job post needs to align with where you're at. All right? So, and as it says here, different structures will work better or worse for you depending on where you're at in your career. This is, aside from the actual experience listed, and that's part of this next piece of the discussion, aside from that, requirements for the job and skills, that's the whole shebang. That's all anybody ever asks about, and I totally get it. Oh, Shanley, wow, everybody love it. Okay, so resumes, cover letter. Let's just do that next week. All right, I'll get that spun up for next Wednesday, because literally everybody here is like, yes, please, I'll take that one. I like this group too, by the way. Nice seeing so many people in here. Skills and requirements. I want to talk about what matters and what doesn't matter, or I should rephrase this: what matters and what matters less, because depending on the market, what matters less will become more and less important. So what matters? And these are things that I've lifted straight out of job postings. All right? Proficient knowledge of rapid prototyping software. That matters. That matters because that is a fundamental core skill required to do that job. Now, it isn't listed as a requirement, it's listed as a skill, but it is required to do the job, so by God, that's more of a requirement. Another one, a thorough understanding of current web technologies and usability best practices. Legitimate. That's legitimate. That is something that you can go brush up on and learn, but that's a legitimate requirement. That matters. If you don't know that, you can't do the job. Can we all agree that, like, if you're applying for a job where you're going to be building out designs for the web, like a thorough understanding of current web technologies and usability best practices, that's a requirement. That is a requirement. What matters less? Possess a degree in graphic design, computer interaction, and interaction design. Nothing about that says that you can or can't do the job. It's like just kind of wrapping your leg in a giant Band-Aid because you've got one little cut. You don't necessarily have to have the Band-Aid to like handle the cut. It'll heal. Here, possessing a degree is just like, oh, okay, we want to make do we think that a degree, do they require a degree? Well, they'll probably learn most of the stuff in school, so yeah, we'll say they'll require a degree. This degree can be from like 20 years ago. My degree that I got in college has nothing to do with any job that I may hold for the rest of my life. Nothing. And to say that possession of that degree matters is ludicrous. Not the rapper, which is like the actual word ludicrous. The other, like this, 3+ years of professional experience designing responsive websites. The ability to design the responsive website is one thing. 3 years of professional experience designing responsive websites, that does not matter because all of those websites could have sucked. Okay? Ultimately, what I need you realizing is that there are things that really matter in those things in the listing, and they typically are skills based. You know how to do this thing. And then there are things that are listed that are experience or possession based, like, oh, I spent 3 years doing this thing, or I have this degree. And it has absolutely no impact on whether you can do the job or not. So when you're pulling apart a job posting, ask yourself, is this something that really determines whether I can do the job or not? Or is this something that's just like it's listed as a requirement? It's typically the first one, because it's the first one they've thought of. Or is it just something there that's like boilerplate? They're trying to protect themselves from getting a lot of really crappy candidates, but this has nothing to do with getting a crappy candidate or not. It has everything to do with whether somebody's duped somebody into giving them experience and hiring them, and then them doing shoddy work for 3 years. It doesn't impact. It does not impact, particularly in a tight job market. Those last two things in a tight job market go right out the window, because ultimately I know what I want, but if nobody's applying, it doesn't matter what I want. It's like dating. At the beginning of this conversation, it was all about dating. I know what I want. I want somebody who enjoys sushi and walks on the beach and all of those things, but I'll take somebody who doesn't fart too much. That, at the end of the day, depending on the job market, that's where you get to. All right, you shift. So I want this, but I'll take that. And ultimately, you have to understand that it goes both ways. It's not just what you're looking for, or what they're looking for. It's where you meet in the middle. And this, being real honest with yourself, is a real key to decoding job postings. Either you can or you can't do that work. And if you can't do that work, I want a job that doesn't fart too much. Yes, that is exactly what I want you thinking. There are some really good jobs out there that you'll talk yourself out of because, it doesn't look at the perfect this or the perfect that. It goes, jobs go both ways. Just like dating. But ultimately, either you can do the work or you can't. In dating, either you're attracted to the person or you're not. And if you're not attracted to the person, if they're just repulsive, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they hit the height requirement and the weight requirement and all that. If they just are repulsive, otherwise, it's not going to matter. Either you have the skills or you don't. The degree doesn't matter. The years of experience doesn't matter. What matters is, can you do the work? And if you can, that's great. But look at your portfolio and ask yourself, have I portrayed that I can do the work, or do I need to do more work here to really illustrate that? And this is kind of the point that I look at when I think about people who suddenly they do a makeover on themselves. Like they get out of a bad relationship, and they just kind of look dumpy. The clothes didn't quite fit right, and they hadn't shaved in a while. Their hair was a mess. And then like 3 weeks later, you're like, whoa, wow, you look great. What happened? And it's like they realized that they weren't portraying their best self. They had just kind of they were just kind of going through the motions, and they hit the dead end with that relationship or whatever, and then they reinvented themselves, and suddenly they were a much more attractive person. They were happier. They felt better. This is what working on your portfolio is like. You got to ask yourself, when you're looking through these job postings, you're like, oh, I'm not quite this and I'm not quite that. Well, you could be. And you likely are. But your portfolio hasn't portrayed that aspect of you. You haven't shown that. You haven't added that project. There's things that you need to work on to raise the desirability of you as a potential applicant. So as you're going through, understand that as you're decoding these job postings, you're going to be picking up clues what they're looking for, and then you need to look back at your portfolio and ask yourself, do I really meet the mark? Or is it just that I'm not quite there because I haven't portrayed this properly? Now, I'm going to end this with a warning. And this, I can't stress this enough. You can meet all those requirements, every single one of them, and still suck. Okay? This is where honesty with yourself really becomes a crucial thing. If you can't be honest with yourself about the skills that you have, the things that you bring to the table, there's nothing I can do to save you time in the job search. You may in fact find a job. There's lots of really crappy designers out there in the world that have jobs. Okay? I know they found jobs. And I know coming out of college, I was a crappy designer. All right? I know what it's like. It takes a lot of effort. You go looking for months, and then ultimately you get a call and it's a crappy job and you take it and you move on with it. But you can elevate your skills. You can elevate how you portray yourself. You can elevate all these things. These things are all improvable over time. You just have to exercise those muscles and be willing to do the work to to move your position, to move the needle on whether you are an attractive candidate or not. But if you don't do that, you're going to waste a lot of time. And I can't help you if you look at your portfolio and you go, oh, I'm perfect. This is where I need to be. And it's not. It's like, I've tried to give you the feedback and you haven't taken it. You haven't been able to look at this and go, yeah, I'm not the best candidate for that job, but I could be. Understand that there's always more work that we can do. There's always more work that we can do. And ultimately, I really believe that we work on our portfolios, we work on our case studies, we work on our projects until we have that job that we want it, and now we don't have time to work on those things. You work on your portfolio until you don't have time to work on it. And when you don't have time to work on it, that's because you have the job that you want it. So with that, I am happy to take questions. I'm happy to look at job postings. If you don't have a question right now, I want to really emphasize this this week. I'm always hanging out over here in New Pragmatic. You might have noticed been posting a lot of new videos this week to the Slack channel, and asking questions over in Slack is never a bad thing. So feel free, if you don't have a question right at this moment, just know that I'm always over here. If you're watching this video 3 weeks from now and a question pops up, I want you to hop over into New Pragmatic Slack channel and just ask it right in general. Just say, hey, Chris, got a question about this job posting. I got a question about this thing on my portfolio. I want to encourage you all to reach in. So with that, does anybody have any questions before we wrap up for the morning? It looks like I unfortunately filled the entire hour. But you had a lot of good questions. And as I stated a little earlier, I think we'll come back next week with a session just on resumes and cover letters and how you can craft resumes and cover letters that are going to resonate as you go through the job application process. Hiring bias. Okay, that is a great question. Curious on your thoughts about hiring bias. Gender, age bias is a notorious problem in tech. There's no question. There's absolutely no question that you are right. What I do think, though, is that there are organizations that this is something that was worse a week ago, a month ago, a year ago than it is now. And I think this is something that will continue to improve. There's been a lot of attention called to this issue. And I can tell you that I see more age bias than I see gender bias. I would say that women in tech are, at least the students that I've have had great success getting jobs in the field with the skills that they have. The only people from a gender perspective that I can think of that have had real problems getting hired are people that really didn't have the full complement of skills they needed. And that's an unfortunate that's an unfortunate statement to have to make. But when you look all things being equal, I've had people of all races, all genders, if they have the skills, they've gotten the jobs. I've had people of all genders and all races that haven't had the skills, and I've noticed the people that specifically have struggled have been women. Gender, or not gender, but race seems to be pretty equal there. If you don't quite have the skills and you're white or you're black or you're Asian, I haven't seen one group fall off more than the other. Hispanic, but in gender, I've seen women really struggle. But it's when they don't quite have the skills necessary for the job, and that's where the let's be honest with ourselves moment has to come in. If you don't quite have the skills, we can work on that. That's something that we can tune. And the easiest way to beat gender bias, and frankly, the easiest way to beat gender bias is skills. Age is far more difficult. And I say this because I've had students that have been in their 40s and 50s, and I've seen what types of struggle that they can have. However, I can say that without a doubt, the easiest way to beat gender and ageism is skill. I say this because I had a student that was in her 50s, woman in her 50s, applying for jobs. She got 3 job offers, but she had an amazing skill set. On the flip side, I've had older males come through in their 50s, and their skill set, their skills were okay, but I really believe ageism played a role in their inability to quickly land a job, and some of them are still looking. And I can only point back to that's not gender, the old guys. It's not gender, but it is age. It's clearly ageism. But again, the easiest way to beat all that is just to knock the skills out of the park. But for women with a less than ideal portfolio, it's going to take longer. But women and men of any race with the skills, I haven't seen that bias jump out. But what I will say is I really believe this. I suspect the issue that tends to pop up is, she didn't quite have enough. And I shouldn't say he, I should just say she didn't quite have enough. And it's an immediate, we're not going to take a chance on her. But when you got that portfolio, I just haven't seen people struggle. Not to the degree that you would think. So that's my 2 cents on it. I think that skills cuts across these biases, because you can't deny talent. You can't. I either want talent on my team or I don't. The one thing I would be careful of there, and I would ask you to look out for organizations that don't clearly value your diversity, the diversity that you're bringing to the table. I really think one of the things that I don't bring to the table, I'm an old white guy. Okay, what alternative perspective am I really bringing to the table? The only thing that I really bring to the table, I believe, is a desire to hire more women and people of race and people of different backgrounds, regardless of orientation, age, sex, gender, race. I value diversity. But as an old white guy, that's the only thing I bring to the table. I'm going to bring more diversity into the tent rather than making an old white dudes club. For point of personal clarification, I think any group of people, if it's all the same group of people, is bad. A group of old women is just as scary as a group of young black teenagers. They're both equally scary to me. I want diverse groups of people. I don't like a group of young white teenagers or middle-aged white men. Very scary. I don't want any of those groups around. I want diverse groups. And you've got to ask yourself, look at the group, like look at the organization. This is something that happened with that woman I was talking about that had the 3 jobs. She looked at the organization. She said, that's a boys club. I'm like the token. They're offering me a job, but I'm the token here. And there's 2 ways to look at that. If I'm saying I want workplaces to be more diverse, should I take that job because then it suddenly is more diverse? Or do I want to go somewhere where I'm just going to feel more, it's more inclusive, I'm going to fit in? And, to her credit, I think she took the right job. She went to the place that was more inclusive to begin with. But I do see it as like a double negative on the place that's the boys club that's trying to change. It's like, so how do they ever change? And the answer is those organizations probably have to dissolve and disperse into other organizations. I don't see you changing a boys club into suddenly not a boys club. So, and I don't think you have to be the trailblazer there. Go somewhere that's going to value you, and go somewhere that shows you that they value people like you, people that bring your unique perspectives to the table. Okay? So, any other questions before we got a little political there? Any other questions before we wrap up? If not, I encourage you all. I'm in the Slack channel every day of the week. Ask me anything, any question that you have. I hope that you jump in there. Know that in the next few weeks, courses are going to start rolling out, and I'm super excited. I've been writing. Oh, okay, is there a link we can get to follow for the Slack group? Lisa, that is on the. If you go to, well, let's just do this. Let's do this, Lisa. newpragmatic.com. If you hop on newpragmatic.com and apply for access right there, you will get a link to join the Slack channel, and that's how you do it. So just know that new courses are starting. We're going to be rolling those out very soon. If you are wanting to jump ahead, I would advise purchasing Thinking in Systems by Donella Meadows. Now Donella Meadows died years ago, but this is her last book that was released posthumously, and it is just a fantastic read. It helps you think about how the designs you're putting out into the world impact the systems that they're going to interact with. It's something that is fundamentally important, regardless of whether you're a Fortune 500 company or a small agency. The work that you're doing does impact the world around you, and being able to recognize how it impacts and what system is it involved in, that's crucial when you're beginning to build new products. So with that, I hope that all of you have a great rest of your day, and I will chat with you next week. Talk soon.